In this video, I will show you how to add drop-down list in Microsoft Excel. So before that, let us examine first our data. We have here the transaction table for ABC Hardware and Software Shop with the following columns. First, we have the transaction number. Next, we have the transaction date. Next, we have the customer name. Our main objective is to create drop-down button for brand and device. Next, amount must be displayed automatically upon the selection of the specific device. Now, let us go into our next worksheet to see the drop-down data. So for our main drop-down list, we have here the column for brand. Next, at the bottom, we have here the devices per specific brand. And on the right, we have here the table for the amount based on devices. Before we start on creating drop-down list, let us implement knee manager on the following data. Let's start with the brand by highlighting cell B3 to B5. Let me name it as brand. Next, I need to name each column based on the brand name. And the shortcut for that is this. Let me highlight the entire table from B8 to D11 and click on the Formulas tab, Create from Selection. Under Create from Selection, let me check top row. Top row means it will use the top row of each column as the header name and apply it to knee manager. So click OK. So far, when you click the drop-down list, you have 4 names. We have the brand, Canon, Lenovo, and Mac. Now, the last thing that we need to do here, let's name this area from cell F2 to cell G10 as the table and press enter. The table, short for device table. We will be using this later as we want to look up the amount in the transaction database. Now, let's go back to transaction database. To start with, we can highlight the brand column starting from column E, row 7, up to row 26. If we need to display the following brand names in this column with a drop-down list, you need to go to Data, click Data Validation, and under Data Validation, select List. The source for the list is equal brand. Data validation will restrict any value from entry user, from the data from the end user. You can set up the following under data validation. We're not limited with lists. We can actually restrict entries using whole number, decimal number, date, time, etc. Now, data validation also contains input message and error alert tab. Input message is optional. It will just add a comment area where you can add the description of your drop-down list or the validation within the cell. Next, we have error alert so that you can modify the message once the end user enter invalid data. We will not go with that. Let's proceed with the settings. For the source, why do we use or type equal brand? Equal brand means the knee manager that is existing in the drop-down data worksheet. It will get all available data under the knee manager run. It will be displayed in the drop-down list. So all we need to do is to click OK here. As you can see, we have a drop-down button that involves or displays all the available brand. Next, let me highlight all the device column from F7 up to F26. And our main objective here now is to create a dependent drop-down list. That means if we select Lenovo, Lenovo must display all devices under Lenovo. That's similar to the other brands. Now, how do we create dependent list? We can apply dependent list when you click on a cell. Let's start with F7, data validation. Now for the allowed, select list. For the source, type equal, indirect, open parenthesis, and select cell E7. Let me remove $sign for both E and 7 so that the result will become relative whenever we do drag down the formula or the data validation itself. All right, so what do we mean by indirect? Indirect converts text value or text input into a specific cell reference, or if there's an existing name manager, it will refer to the name manager. Right? So since the value of E7 later, it's either Lenovo Mac and Canon or Canon. When you say Lenovo as text, it will define Lenovo as name manager since Lenovo name manager is present in the drop-down data. Okay, in order to show you the result, let me click the OK button. Yes. Click yes. All right, so as the end user select a drop-down, let's say Lenovo, the device selection is limited to what Lenovo data has. Next, if the end user select Mac, device is limited to what's available device under Mac. Next, for Canon, it will be limited to any device that is under the brand of Canon. So let's apply this to the rest of the cell reference and double check the drop-down data worksheet. Right, so this is what we have for the dependent list. Lastly, I need to display the amount based on the selected brand and device. For example, if I selected camera, how much is the camera in this table? The amount will be displayed using the VLOOKUP function. So the formula is equal VLOOKUP, open parenthesis, select F7, D table for the device table. You need to look up the price or the amount that's under second column. And lastly, for match of data, let's use 0. 0 for exact match. Let's press enter. That's 29,800. Let me double check going back to drop down data. And let's look at the camera device, and that's equivalent to 29,800. The end user tend to change the device or brand, they can always click on specific drop data on the drop down list. So for example, printer. So the value of the amount will change into printer, camera, and then video camera. Okay, let's try another one here. Let's select other brand. Let's say Mac. For the drop down, let me use iPhone. And for the formula, let's drag it down. You have 27.6. Let's check iPhone. That's 27.6 in the drop down data menu. Okay. Lastly, if for example, there are no match available in the table, you can always add if error function for your VLOOKUP. For example, if I attempt to drag down the formula, here's the problem. Excel will automatically display the NA or not available data in this worksheet. because we don't have any selection yet for the brand and device. In order to eliminate the error messages, we can double click on the amount column and add here the if error function. If error, open parenthesis, at the end of the line, you type comma, two double quotations, and then close parentheses. If error will catch any error messages that will be displayed through VLOOKUP, and it will replace by a blank character. When you type two double quotations in any formula, it will return a blank cell reference. So when I pressed enter and automate the rest of the formula down below, you'll notice that Excel will not display the NA message anymore. Okay? Anytime you want to remove the drop down, you can always go back to data validation, and there's a clear all button for you to remove it. All right? And that's it on how to create drop down button in Microsoft Excel.